I would describe my work as art that evolves from being an environmental activist. Activism, environmentalism, sustainability, those are the things that drive me, and that the artwork is basically my way of trying to find a way to talk about those things or to ask pertinent questions about those things. Most of the work has been primarily focused around toxic pollutants in streams in Ohio, particularly derived from acid mine drainage from improperly sealed and abandoned coal mines. So I'm going to think it was about 2009 perhaps that we went out and looked at some of these streams in Ohio that are polluted with iron oxide and aluminum and other heavy metals from acid mine drainage. And when I looked at the colors from the streams, I asked the person who was giving us the tour if, since it was pure iron oxide, if that could be extracted and used for pigments. And that's when she indicated that somebody was already doing that, and that's my partner, that's Professor Guy Riefler, who's in engineering. And so he is actually the one who's been working on this process since the early 2000s. And it's that process of taking this acidic and toxic with heavy metal water and actually finding a way to, in process, while it's moving, extract the pigments with the hope of selling those pigments in order to raise enough funds to continue cleaning up the stream. And the other thing we've done is that I take those pigments and I make artwork out of it so that the public or viewers can actually see the work, be inspired by it to ask questions, and then I can further discussions and dialogues about sustainability and our efforts here in Ohio to clean those things up. My interest in sustainability and environmentalism, it comes from an emotional and psychological need to figure out why we're here and to figure out how I can be the best person I can be while I'm here on the planet. And what does that mean for me on a daily basis? And what does that mean for me in the long term? And so that requires me to examine lots of different areas. So I'm interested in philosophy, I'm interested in sciences, I'm interested in poetics. And where those things kind of come together to ask this larger question about what we're doing here and what I can do on a daily basis in my practice and as a person meeting other people to make sure that we have a better environment, a more sustainable environment, a future that's worth living for, that's where my inspiration really comes from. And I see what other artists, what other scientists, and what other activists are doing in the world. Usually that's when I get inspired by things. Maybe someone has developed something that isn't a product that's really being used yet in terms of technology towards sustainability. And maybe there's a way that I can actually access that and help that come to fruition. I skipped school for about a week in high school, which is very typical, in the beginning of my senior year. Before I skipped that week, I threw all of my artwork that I made in high school in a trash can and stormed out in a typical episode of teenage angst. My teacher at the time actually pulled all the artwork out of the trash can and laid it on a table, and these judges came by from the state competition of some kind, and I won first place in the state. She sort of encouraged me to maybe take a shot at college to do it. So I did, we got lucky. I got a scholarship to go to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and once I was there, I could only afford 2 years, and I decided I wanted to be an illustrator. So when I was 19 years old, I got a children's book published that I illustrated and authored, and did a small tour with that one and everything else. When I was on the tour for the children's book thing, that's when I figured out that my take on what everybody liked in the world was very different. And say for children's books, my next 2 manuscripts got turned down. It became clear at that point that I was going to have to actually go the art route, and it took me another 10 years to get there, but it was very much worth it. And I think that I'm one of these amazingly lucky people in life that wakes up every day and gets to do what they want every day. So kind of won the lottery in life, you know. Really fortunate in that I've had some dealers who were willing to represent that work, and I've had people who were interested in the ideas behind them enough to purchase them. So for me, my artwork actually has become this great hobby that can pay for itself, which is good. So when I have to travel for shows or other kinds of things, the sales of artwork is just enough to cover that and to cover my expenses in the studio, which is good. The fact that they're in important collections, or what I believe to be important collections, is something I haven't really thought about. I haven't really thought about that. It happens a little bit at a time, so 1 a year, 2 a year. I guess it's a pretty amazing privilege, and it's kind of hard to think of myself as a person who's really supposed to be in those collections, but I'm glad to be in them. I never plan on moving here or teaching at Ohio University, but my job here is to make damn sure that you've been battle tested and you've arrived at a place where you can be yourself on a daily basis, be confident in yourself, and at the same time have a broad understanding of what it means to operate out there in the art world or whatever world you're going to be in. You demand of them more than they would ever demand of themselves. And I'm very fortunate to say that that happens a lot for my students, to see them be amazingly successful and win awards and have big, full careers. That's why I do this. We're doing it because someone did it for us, and we feel sort of mind-bogglingly lucky that we do this. And so to share that with other people, that's kind of, it's a pay it forward sort of thing. And it's because of all these other people locally who've been so willing to give me their time and their expertise and their help and their understanding. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I'm very privileged to have this great life, and to do these things will hopefully have a much greater impact for our larger community in Athens and Ohio and in Appalachia. And so to have that for me, and I have a big soft spot for Athens and the OU community. So I want to make sure I give a shout out to everybody else who's helped me, because this was not dreamed up in my studio by myself. Thanks, everyone.